This week we're going to concentrate our tie and fish videos on flies that fish in the surface film. So not our dry flies, not nymphs, they're just in that surface film. They present an easy meal for cruising trout. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first fly we're going to tie then is a slight variation on the yellow owl. Now this can fish in different ways depending on how you tie in the CDC. So let's get on and tie it. The hook in the vise is a Hanak H330 barbless hook. This one's at size 10. It's finished on a medium wire and in bronze. The thread I'm going to be using for this version of the owl is UTC. It's at 140 denier, and as you can see it's a yellow thread. So first thing I'm going to do is get a little bit of wax onto my thread. Now the UTC thread does come waxed, but you do need a little bit more. So I'm going to catch in just behind the eye and get 2 or 3 wraps on. I'll come back about 1/8 of an inch, take away my waste. Now what I'm going to do is give this a little twist anti-clockwise, and I'm going to bring my thread, which is now flattened out a little bit, you can see there, back to about 2 millimeters from the eye of the hook. Now the CDC I'm going to use is from Trout line. It's the Campbell Khaki CDC Classic Pack. Now what I love about this is you can just pick out the feathers. So I'm going to use a minimum of 6 feathers. Please bear in mind that these flies are designed for the still waters, and you can catch some pretty big fish on the still waters. Not only that, the flies are designed to be fished with between a 6 and a 7 weight rod, even maybe up to an 8. And what you don't want to do is straighten your hooks out with the heavy outfits. So I get 6, at a minimum 6 CDC feathers in, which makes it virtually unsinkable. Even if there's a good blow on the reservoir, this fly will still stay afloat if it's treated properly. Other things getting in the way there. So I'm just going to stack the CDC on my bench here. And once I've got that, all the tips married up, I can then dress it up to the fly. I'm just going to switch hands now so that the tips are towards the palm of my right hand. Now I'll show it up to the fly first of all, just to get the right distance. And what I want is about just shy of the length of the shank of the hook for the shuttlecock part. I'm going to make sure I've got it right on top of the shank and bring it round. 3 turns to hold it into place. Now, points to note here is that I've left plenty of room at the front. Probably too much there actually, so I'm just going to bring another turn over to capture that in at the front. I can bring it back. It's not an issue. But that's more like the distance I want to leave free at the front of the hook here. As I was said in the introduction, emerging patterns and patterns that sit within the surface film just make such an easy meal for trout. Now, this is quite important. I don't want a straight cut, so I could come in behind here. It'd be much easier and just cut it straight. You don't want to do that. You want to come in and you want to get a good angle. And what this angle does is it helps to keep that nice taper in the body. So again, I'm just giving my thread a little twist anti-clockwise to just keep the thread nice and flat. And as you can see, as I come onto the shank, I'm now starting to achieve that nice taper in the body. Thread's starting to go all over the place though, but don't worry, we can deal with that later. Next thing then is the wire rib. I'm using some Simplify wire here, it's black, and it's at 0.2 millimeters. Now, don't ever try and cut wire with your scissors, just use your hands to snap it. And then we can catch that in on my side, and I'll just get a couple of wraps catching in that wire end. Bring it all the way down, a bit further than you would think. Then I've just, with a couple of turns, I've come back up the fly, because next, on this particular variation of the fly, I'm going to add a little bit of a crinkle butt. Now I'm using some hen's material, this is, it's KEM01. I'll just take it out of the tube that I keep it in, and as you can see, it's a very fine crinkle flash. I mean, super fine, and it's ideal for this type of fly. So what I'll do is I'll just take a strand off, I'll get that out of the way. Now what I'm going to do with this is I'm simply going to fold it so I get 3 strands. I'm going to tie 3 strands of this in. I'll fold it over. It does like to misbehave, the old crinkle flash, but you just got to persevere. It is worth the effect. So there I've got, you can see I've got 3 strands of flash. Now I'll use my scissors to cut that away, and then I can simply tie that in where I parked my thread before. Now it's taken me longer, much longer, to explain how to tie this fly than it is to actually tie it. It's actually a very quick tie. Now I want to keep my crinkle flash on top of the shank, so I've started it just slightly towards me, and I'm going to come back down the hook until I reach where I stopped my rib. Then I'm going to do one more turn, and again I want to straighten out my thread. So flatten out the thread, twist the bobbin anti-clockwise, and then when that's flat, you can see I can get a really nice smooth body. It's a bit of a faff, but it is worth the extra effort. Now the little gap I've got up here I'm going to fill. Try and carry on with that taper. If your thread starts to turn up again, and surely it will, because that's its nature, just give that bobbin the anti-clockwise twist. And then you can see I'm getting a nice, flat, cracking tapered body there. It's just looking spot on. Now, fishing this fly is a relatively simple affair, and I like to fish it in a team. I don't very rarely fish. Sorry, I'm just trying to pick up the crinkle flash and it's denying me. I'm just going to come in at the end here and just leave a little bit of sparkle in the butt there. Now, why am I tying in the crinkle flash? Well, emerging insects, very often they're trying to shed their shuck, which is like a white, milky, cloudy sort of thing, but the flash simulates that, and it can be really effective. So that's why I'm doing that. So as I was saying before, I like to fish it as part of a team of flies, and very often I would have 2 culls, one on the top dropper, one on the point, and what I would fish in the middle, especially flies of this size, is a maybe size 16 hare's ear type thing, just a little tiny fly that looks like a bug, and size 16's my go-to, because what I don't want the fly that I've got in the middle doing is dragging down my 2 dry flies, or my 2 emerging flies, should I say. I don't want people shooting me in the comments because I've called them dry flies. They're not dries, they're emergers, and there is a difference. So I've got my rib in place now. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to use, again, I'm coming to a hen's product here. It's hair dubbing, and the number is number 1. And it's basically, they call it hair dubbing plus. And it's various colours of dubbing, but they've put sparkle throughout, which gives it that little bit of life. So I've got a little bit off, and I'm going to just dub that onto my thread. I always put just a little bit on to start with. It's much easier to add dubbing than it is to rip it away. So what I'm going to do is bring it back over to create my thorax. And that's about right. And then I can come back up to where my CDC is. I can take away some of them loose fibres there. As the fly stands now, I could bring my thread to the front of the hook, and I will do actually because it needs to be there, and I could just finish that off. But what I want to do is I want to cock the hackle up, and that'll make it sit differently in the water. Depends on how far down you want your fly to sit. So I want mine to sit kind of as it is in the vise here. So what you've got to do is cock this up, and the way to do it is using just the same dubbing that you used for the thorax. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get one more turn in behind the CDC, and then I'm going to come to the front and start using that dubbing to cock the hackle. You can see there it's now cocked up, and I brought the thread to the eye of the hook. Now there's every danger that this might slip over the top, and when you're trying this for yourself, that might happen. If it is happening a lot and you're getting a bit frustrated with it, just put a half hitch in, and that'll pause the time process. It will no longer slip over the hook, and you'll be right as rain. So next, I'm going to get some varnish onto my thread. I don't want to be going in with CDC after I've finished the whip finish, because you end up getting varnish all over your CDC. Now, there we go. That's the finished shuttlecock. Yellow owl, very popular, loads of variations, and this is one that's worked particularly well for me, and I thought I would share it with you. I would fish it on its own on certain days if the fish are particularly finicky and I've had to really thin down my tippet. I'd be more than content to fish a single one of these on maybe a 10-12 foot leader. Get that fly as far away from the fly line as possible. And the best way of fishing it, of course, is completely static. So throw it out there. If you're in a boat, you keep up with the fly line in case you get an offer, but don't fish it too far away from yourself. You've got to be able to see the fly, because sometimes the fish will come and you'll just see the fly disappear. They suck it down, and you've got to pay a lot of attention to this. And if you're not paying attention, they'll have it down and eject the fly before you're even aware that you've had a take. So there we go, my variation of the yellow owl. Let's get on and tie the next fly. Well, this is one of my all-time favourite flies, not particularly the claret hopper, which we're going to tie today, but I do love a black hopper, especially in the months of September, getting into early October. It's just so effective. It just represents so many different terrestrials that are on the water. I think the only thing that tops it for me is maybe a detached body daddy longlegs, which is super effective, especially the orange-bodied one. If you've not seen that, you might want to look it up. It is on the channel. The claret hopper remains one of my go-to sort of flies, and if I'm fishing a team of dry flies, invariably this is a fly that I would fish on the top dropper. So let's get on and tie it. The hook in the vise is a Hanak H230 barbless hook. This one's at size 10. It's finished in black nickel and it's on a medium wire. Now it's important to use medium wire because we are wanting this fly to fish in the film. The thread I'm going to be using today is from Trout line. This is Code A4, and as you can see, it's a red thread. It's pretty much an 8/0 red thread. So first thing I'm going to do is get a little bit of wax onto the thread. Oops, my wax is misbehaving now. And then I can come in just behind the eye and lay down a bed of tyne silk. Or thread, should I say, it's not silk. Now, long before various other sort of subsurface flies found favour amongst the competition boys. The claret hopper was one of the go-to flies, and with good reason. It was so effective, especially at that back end. Now, the rib I'm going to put on is Vivis Pearl. It's a medium rib, and as suggested, it's pearl. Now, you can use various other things. I sometimes just use a silver wire, and that works quite effectively. But if you're going for the full effect, this pearl rib certainly does help. So I'm going to just catch that in at the butt. Don't need to be too fussy about it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my thread into a workable bit. Now, the claret I'm using, it's not a particularly good colour of claret. I've got to say, I'm not being very fussy on it, but I bought it anyway, and I'm going to use it up. But I think next time I'll be a wee bit more discerning about the colour of claret I've got. It's just a wee bit too deep. What I should do really is mix it with some red seals fur, and I might get the colour that I'm after, but on this occasion I haven't. Now, seals fur, quite frankly, it's a pain in the arse. There's no other way of describing it. It's a coarse fibre, but it's designed to stay up in the water, so that's why people are still like to use it. You can get some synthetic stuff now, which it doesn't really cut it for my money. I've tried various different synthetics, but I always tend to come back to seals fur. As I said, it can be a pain. So how can we help negate that? And how I do it is using some tacky wax. This does help. When you're dubbing it onto the thread, it makes a big difference, and it helps to dub much more easily. So I'll just grab the little bit I've taken out the packet, get it up to the thread, and then dub it on. Now I don't want to dub it on too hard, but sometimes just to get it to behave, there's not much else you can do really. So I'll not put too much effort into the pushing down, because I do want that to stretch out. Now with this, you just want to get the hook shank covered really. Bring it all the way up, and I think I've got too much on, which is a cardinal sin with seals fur, because as you see, it can be a bit of a pain taking it off your thread. But I've got that off. It's not looking too bad. I can live with it. And then I'll get a couple of reps just to hold that into place. Now, I'm not going to be too fussy about these outlying fibres. With my pearl rib, I like to get a butt onto the fly before I start coming up the body. 2 or 3 turns, I'll ensure that's a good solid butt, and then I can come up the fly, and I'm looking for approximately 3 turns for my rib. And then I'll bring it onto the shank of the hook, bring my thread over, like so, and once I'm sure I've caught that in, I can get it down properly and get a few turns in front of the rib. Now, what I like about the Vivis that we just discussed here, you'll get all different manner of this kind of materials, but what I would say is out of all of them, and I've tried them all to be fair, is the Vivis seems to be a bit tougher. So if you don't put some super glue at the back of some of them, they just get shredded after a couple of fish, whereas with the Vivis it's a bit tougher and you get a lot more life out the fly. Now before we go on, I'm going to just come in with my dubbing brush here. I used to have a little Velcro one, but I seem to have misplaced that. I prefer the Velcro because this wire one can be a little bit harsh, but it does a job, it does a job. And then I can just ease that back. Some two long fibres. Now, what we've done here is teased out the fibres, and once you've treated it with gink or whatever, this will cause it to have a footprint, which just keeps it in that film, and that's quite important. So, next we come on to the legs. I used to spend hours in front of the television tying up knotted legs. I'm too long in the tooth for that nonsense now, and I end up just buying some legs. So what I'm using today is from Vineyards, and it's pre-knotted legs, and they're a godsend when you're tying a lot of these flies up. Now what I want to do is get a clump of 4 legs, 3 or 4, depends on how tight you are, I suppose. I mean, I used to just tie in 3, but as I get older, I realise it's only money. I might as well spend it. So what I want to do is catch in the legs on my side first. I'm going to tie it in first. You can do these together, but I just find it's a lot easier to tie them in separately. So I'll do my side first. Oops, nearly cut my leg off there. I mean the hopper leg, not my real leg. You know what I mean. Yeah. And then I'll grab my stock again and grab another clump, and then again similar length. Now I want these legs to trail to the back of the fly, and I also want them to sit down. So I see a lot of flies, especially in the shops, and I don't know why they've not been corrected really, but the legs are coming out the top of the fly, and that's fine and well if you're going to have if it's for pulling. You know, your fly's maybe on an intermediate line, you're pulling, the legs are out the back, just gives that buggy effect. But if you're fishing it static as an emerging pattern, then I would suggest that the legs should be where they belong, which is below the fly. You don't see legs sticking out the top of insects, do you? They're below, so you can use them to walk or swim or whatever. So, there we go. Now I'm going to come back to my tacky wax, which also helps with the flotation of this fly. And then I'll get another little bit of dubbing, not much, a bit easier to tap on, and I'm just going to get that wrapped in. Now you'll notice the dubbing's quite far away from the thread, because what we're going to do is catch in our hackle at this point. Now for the hackle, I'm simply using a cock cape here. I've already picked out a feather. Now with these feathers, this is quite a good quality cape. At the bottom of the stem here, it's much thicker. It just is difficult to work with unless you're tying a big fly. Now with this smaller fly, this is much more mobile. The further up the feather you go, the more mobile you're going to get. So I'm going to just take that, and over my wastebasket I'll create myself a little handle that I can tie in. I've maybe made that a little bit too long. I'll just trim that away. Now I'm going to get it so that the bad side of the feather is facing down onto the body of the fly. Then I can catch that in with a few wraps. Then as I come up, I'm going to just start getting that little bit of dubbing back onto the fly. Now what that does is it gives me that profile down below. Does it matter? Would it make any difference? I'm not so sure, but that's how I do it. It's up to you whether you would like to follow suit or not, but the extra bit of dubbing, I think it helps. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just break the stem slightly so that it comes out at an angle. Grab my hackle pliers, and then the first turn, make sure you're in front of your legs, and then you can come up the body. Just encourage it to go back. Now the more hackle you put in, the more likely it is to float. I would fish this on its own, single fly, 10 to 12 foot leader, light leader. Now I suppose I'll just try and see off any questions while I'm finishing up this fly. Would I fish it with copolymer? And the honest answer is no. I would never fish copolymer for dry fly fishing or emerger fishing for that matter. And the reason for that is it's time mostly. I still do quite a bit of competition fishing, and the last thing I want to be doing is messing about with changing the tippet that I use rather than just tying on the dry fly. So just take away that excess hackle. It's looking not too bad. And again, we'll use, just caught a fibre in there. We'll use the trick of, in fact, that fibre's just not playing, is it? It's just there to annoy me. Right, let's try. There we go. I finally got it. It took a bit of doing, but we got there in the end. So created a nice little head there. And again, because we're tying an emerging pattern, I don't want to come in after the fact and try and apply the head varnish. So I'm going to get a little bit of varnish onto my thread, and when I hit finish, it'll automatically set and keep the head intact. So we're going to get that round. Again, this can be a great fly to fish as a team. So you know, you would have the claret one on the top. Well, I would have the claret one on the top, maybe a brown one in the middle, and the black one would be inevitably on the point. And if you're fishing to fish that are cruising up and down, taking emerging patterns, then what you can do is you're covering a larger range of water. Now you've got to remember that when a trout is higher in the water column, its window of vision is much smaller. So you get away with having your flies a lot closer together, 3 or 4 feet. You know, you could tie 3 flies on 12 foot of tippet and the fish wouldn't care, because all they're seeing is that small window of opportunity. And if you can cover, if there's a shoal of fish moving, you can end up catching more than one of them. So there we go, the claret hopper. It's a great fly. September, October time, it'll really do a job for you. Guys, if you've watched this far, I really appreciate it. Now, I know not all of you will be wanting to see every pattern that I tie. So what I'm going to start doing is indexing them in the description and below the video. So if you want to just see a particular fly, you can go straight to the timestamp and watch that fly. You don't need to watch the whole video if you don't want to, although I do really appreciate it when you do, because it helps the algorithm decide that you're enjoying the content and it pushes it out to more people. Now, while we're on that note, I would really appreciate if you could give the video a like, even if you're only going to watch one of the flies. And if you don't like it, give me the thumbs down. I don't mind. I'm still learning. I think fly tying and fly fishing, for that matter, is a journey, and while you're on that journey, you're always picking up new information that can help you. So if you have given me a thumbs down, though, I would appreciate what I'm doing wrong in the comments section, because if you don't tell me, I can't fix it. So let's get on and tie the last fly. Now, when I gave the introduction and when I was thinking about the concept for this video, I was very specific about what I said. Flies that fish in the surface film. I didn't say emergers, I didn't say dry flies, because this last fly, which I wanted to include, is neither of them. It's a shrimp pattern. Shrimp live in the water, and if you fish any of the Midlands reservoirs, you'll know they've become one of the most important food sources for trout. So let's get on and tie the fly. The hook in the vise is a Hanak H 330 barbless hook. This one's at size 8, it's finished in bronze, and it's on a medium wire. The thread I'm going to be using today is from Trout line. It's code A2. As you can see, it's a black thread. And what I'm going to do is get a start with a bit of wax onto the thread. I'll catch just in behind the eye here and get about a third of the way down. I'm going to come back up and I'm going to stop about 2 millimeters for the eye of the hook, come in with my scissors and take that away. Now, all I've got here is, it's a tube. I've already sort of half prepared it, if you like. So I cut a diagonal slit across the tube. This is a 5 millimeter tube because we are tying quite a big fly here. Now what I want to do with this is that slant is correct. Just ignore the top because that's going to be changing. So what I want to do is get where my thread's parked in line with the top of the slant here. And then I can grab that, very gently just start to wrap it on. Don't put too much pressure on. This is just to get it into position. Now as we've got it in the right place and I can see it's sitting pretty nice, I can start to clamp down onto it. But if you put too much pressure on when you're first starting to do it, what you'll find is if you're using a thin thread like I am, it's about 8/0, it'll just cut straight through the foam strip and then you're snookered. You've got to get another one out. But doing it this way allows you to just get it firmly into position. If you're tying a load of these up, I'm not going to do it today, but sometimes I'll just add a little bit of super glue in there, set it off to the side to dry if I'm tying several. The next thing then is the rib. Now, you won't be able to get this anymore because sadly Steve Parton is no longer with us. He was a legend in the fly fishing and fly tying world, but he used to own a company called Spartan, and this is the rib that I use for my shrimps. Now, what I like about it, there's nothing to it. It's just dead plain, but it's got a sheen to it, but nothing much else. There's no colour. It's not got any sparkle. It's just a natural sort of sheen. So I'm going to catch that in just where my foam finishes, and then I'm going to bring that all the way down to where I want the fly to finish. Now I'm going to come quite far around the hook before bringing my thread back up. The next thing then is a bit of English partridge, and I've just got this from Vineyards at the moment. It's not particularly good. I've got to rake through the packet to find the feathers that I want. There's good usable feathers in there, but it is a bit of a pain to find the right feathers. So for the tailing fibres, I've selected this feather here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply take half a dozen fibres. I'm going to carefully put it down because that will do for multiple flies. And I'll grab this off. You can see my tailing fibres there. I'll just get the right distance, and once I'm content, I'll grab the fibres with my left hand, and then I can slowly come down. Try and keep a hold of your tailing fibres, keep them on top of the shank, and there's your tail in place. I'll come all the way back up. Now I could cut this away, but I'm going to just simply catch it into place out the way. Now I appreciate that I'm using materials here that you might not be able to lay your hands to. So the partridge is pretty common, but certainly Steve Parton stuff. I think the nearest thing to this is a product called Buzzer Wrap, which is very similar, if anyone was wondering. But I'm lucky, I've still got quite a full spool. Should see me till my dying day, so I'm going to stick with this. Now, talking about stuff you can't get a hold of anymore, I'm going to be using some Trout Stalkers, Andrew's Scruffy dubbing. This is the natural boosted, and this is the last of the material that I have. So hence, I'm using it. I'm actually tying myself up some new boxes for reservoir fishing next year, and dubbing I've took out the packet's just blown off the vise, so get that there. So I'm tying new boxes for the reservoir. I just wanted to refresh my boxes. A lot of the stuff that's in my current competition boxes is just no good to man their beast, to be honest. I look at it and think, did I actually tie them? But I think we're probably all a bit self-critical. So before I come in with my dubbing, I'm going to just catch that into place, and then I can grab a scruffy dubbing. It's such a shame that you can't get this material anymore. It's just a blend. I don't know what the recipe is, and I certainly haven't got the skill set to blend it up myself, but this is absolutely fantastic, and it works a treat for this shrimp pattern. So bring it round. The alternative to this, of course, is just plain hare's ear. The darker the better, I find, but I've still got a little bit left, and these are going in my box, so I'm not overly worried. Now I've got a little bit of a bigger gap there than I want. I do want a gap, but that's just a little bigger than I want, so I'll just come in with a bit more dubbing. So how does the this top hat shrimp fish? It's ideal for when the fish are on the weed beds. Now, we all know the frustration of fishing on the weed beds when you cast out and every cast you're catching weed. So the idea of this is it's sitting just in that surface film. As soon as it hits the water, you'll often get a take, and if not, you can just leave it static in the holes between the weed. That's how I find it's best fished. So I'm going to grab my rib, and I'm going to rib up the fly. It's proved really good, this pattern, actually. It's probably good for fishing in low water as well. So if you're fishing the margins, in at the side of the bank, and you don't want your fly sinking, get a couple of turns just to hold that into place. Excuse my hands, a bit cack-handed here. I'll trap that in, and then I can take that away. Now again, I'm going to come in with my beeswax and just get some on the thread. That's looking not too bad. I don't even think I need to scruff it out with my brush. So the next thing then, we're going to trap in a wing. And again, I've picked out a feather here already. I'll just find my hackle pliers, and I want to grab the tip of the feather in my hackle pliers, like so. Pull it back so we get that Christmas tree effect. And then what I want to do is I don't want all these fibres, so I'm going to get what I need. And make it a smaller Christmas tree. So it's like that now. And then I can take away a little bit at the top. I want to leave a slight handle here because I'm going to catch that in. Now on this occasion, I'm going to get the wrong side of the feather down onto the body of the fly. So I'll bring that up, catch it into place, like so. And then I can come back, grab the handle with my hackle pliers, and this is going to suggest the legs of the shrimp. Doesn't need much, to be honest. There's so much fibres on it. Then as it comes round, I can then grab my my thread again. I was thinking about something else there for some reason. Grab my thread and bring that up. Again, this is a fly that very often I'll just fish it on its own, to be honest. I don't want it encumbered by a team of flies. But when I do fish a team, invariably I've only got one of these on, and it's generally on the point to act as a supporting member of the cast for the remainder of the flies, which would be a much smaller offerings, like size 16 to size 14 hairs here, perhaps, if I am fishing for shrimp feeders. My opening gambit's the bigger fly that's suspending the other two flies, so the size 16, size 14s fishing above it. So next down, another little bit of the dubbing, and I am being very sparingly with this because I've got a few of these flies to tie and I haven't got very much dubbing left. So I'll probably end up doing as you do and just get some other dark hare's fur to create these. So I'm going to just tilt my post back and come in just below there. Again, I'm going to grab a little bit of dubbing, and what this will do is it will kick that post up in the air for me. So pull it back, bring it up, stack it in there, and you can see already the post sitting much higher on the fly. And once again, we'll get a little bit of varnish onto our thread. Now, this post, let's have a look at the post. It's far too big. I don't want it that big. You could have a look at the one we tied earlier. It's much shorter. If you've got a large post like this, what tends to happen is the fly lies flat on the water, which is no good. You want the body to be sitting in that surface film where the fish can see it and come and take it. So the tall posts, although you may think, oh, it's going to keep my fly really high in the water, what it does is it just makes it not fish properly. So what I'm going to do with my gash scissors here, I'm going to come in and trim that down to a more reasonable size, like so. And then just to finish off, I don't like having the sharp edges. I'm going to hold the body, let my fingers take the brunt, and seal that foam. And there we have a top hat shrimp. I hope you enjoyed that, folks. This series has been great fun, and it's made me think more about what I'm trying to deliver here. I want you to have a go at fly tying, and I want you to have a go at fly fishing. So thanks for watching. Don't forget the thumbs up, and I'll see you all in the next one.